Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Just good, and delighted to see you all. It's fantastic. This is the third Coffee Buddies recreation that we've done at the Biotech Gay Festival, and it's wonderful to be back in the seats. I'm not sure it's wonderful to be with Graham again, but I tolerate it. And things seem to be incredibly exciting in the sector. I think from what I can see, it's one of the most exciting times that I've seen. And Coffee Buddies is all about engaging, informing and entertaining. And our mantra is to bring interesting people to the table, or to the screen, if we haven't got the table. And we will then engage in conversation. And we're lucky enough tonight to have Remco come back again. He was here yesterday and he was so good. He's like New York, so good they said it twice. Remco is the same. And he's arrived back, and we're going to have an interesting discussion. And Remco, maybe to start, maybe you could tell everyone who you are, what you are, and what you do.
Yes, thank you very much, Tony and Graham. In terms of New York, I'm actually coming back to this Coffee Buddies year after year, 4 times a year or something like that. And there's a lot of folk here that I recognize from these Coffee Buddies that have generated leads and referrals for further business. So I appreciate this this venue quite a bit. So, 20 years in life sciences, starting from the bench, going into commercial roles with the Vitreous and Life Technologies, Thermo Fisher Scientific, to develop and commercialize tools that can be used in pharmaceutical companies and biotech to accelerate their output. And at some point, I realized that the next problem is not so much the next technology, which will always be necessary, but if we take into account next generation sequencers, mass spectrometers, or high content screening instruments, the next evolution of that will generate more data. So the life scientists in pharmaceutical companies will also have to be data scientists that can deal with data acquisition, data management, data storage, and data analysis. And I've been tailoring my focus on that in the past 6 or 7 years now, with different initiatives to set up business for LIMS management in biobanks and next generation sequencing, setting up a Swiss site for bioinformatics to support Swiss pharmaceutical companies, and then bringing an American company to IPO that required a commercial plan to use their AI platform for better patient selection in clinical trials.
And excellent. And you've got a few slides you want to share with us. So should we bring a few slides up?
Yes.
Okay, let's do that.
Excellent. Maybe you could start up from this, Remco.
Yes, of course. So in the chat box, I put my contact details. Yesterday, I realized that I can't manage the chat and do the presentation and interview at the same time. So whoever wants to reach out to me, please through this. So Frontiere, please go to the next slide, Graham.
Yeah,
is an Italian AI services company that has different sites around the world, roughly 100 FTE working there, and has been working in different markets, from insurance to fintech to infrastructure. And I've been with this company now for a year, supporting them into the biotech and pharma and healthcare space. So if we go to the next slide, please. Frontiere is actually interesting because of their large breadth of AI technologies that they have at their fingertips, and that is probably what I'm looking for to work in or support pharmaceutical companies and biotech with different types of approaches. If we go to the next slide, one of the specific approaches that I'm trying to launch and eventually spin out into a separate company is actually AI-powered portfolio management. We all know the difficulties of drug discovery and development in terms of high attrition rates, high costs, and long cycles. That's compounded particularly in the field of portfolio management, where specifically now, there's not much cash for biotech. As a result of that, there's a focus for prioritization of assets. We're looking in many cases at earlier stage assets where you need different types of data sourcing to actually do a good valuation. Timing is everything. The right time for the right deal. Having a better timing in terms of what's going on is crucial. And then all the AI driven companies out there, the AI biotechs that will be delivering or have started delivering in clinical trials right now, but will be delivering in the next 5 years, are going to give a wealth of new assets that will have to be valued as well. So I think there's a moment here for the new type of portfolio management that moves a little bit away from Excel files and intuition. Intuition will always be necessary, but can you scale that? That's also a question. So if we move to the next slide, please. I've got a couple of modules that have been in development now and are available. The full pipeline is not there yet, so let's be clear that there's not much of it is still conceptual. But here we have a case where what we usually see is that what I usually encounter is that people have an internal data set that they want that they use for internal needs, and that they'd like some data enrichment from public sources, which public sources could be PubMed, ClinGov, Orange Book, EPO in terms of patents. There's different types of approaches there. And here we've looked at, this is just a brief screenshot of a video that we have that's a bit longer. So anybody who wants a demo, please contact me. We'll be doing the demo. So here we've got a couple of assets in a row. In the full row is, I think, 70 assets or something like that. And on the fourth column, there's something called hits found on asset. That's the number of public domain data points that could be used as a quantitative approach of the value of that asset. Given the information in those data set, in those hits, you can make an aggregated score using an algorithm. In this case, the algorithm is not trained. It just gives a random score here, so 90% or 80%. And then you can filter that down going into the specific assets. You can change the manual score. So if you're not satisfied with the system score, you can add a manual score that that manual score can then go into a learning, so that it'll take that into account for further analysis.
How big, Remco, is the asset pool? I mean, you know, if I started and went around the entire world and all the institutions, is the asset pool of available assets 2,000, 3 million? What size is this universe?
That I do not know. If you look at traditional pharma, they usually have, traditional large pharma, they have, let's say, compound libraries of 5 million compounds that then have to be teased out chemically to make the compound of choice. What the largest chemical space is, I do not know. But
I don't really mean that. I mean that if you went to Roche, they wouldn't. All their chemical stuff is not in like this. But there may be, if you went around the world, some of the Roche drugs that are either off patent or they're available now for licensing And I'm just wondering, is it a very big universe or is it a very small universe? I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't have a clear answer on that.
Because if it's a very big universe, I can see the excitement of the AI because you can really trawl around. But it's just that. Anyway, I'm curious about that. Anyway, moving on.
But to your point is, regardless of whatever the number is, which I don't know in terms of the assets that are transactable at the moment,
Yes.
all these assets have data points and metadata points associated to them. So that's what makes this universe of data points so big that an AI tool can help you out in terms of teasing out information.
Yes. Yeah.
So last thing that I wanted to add into that is that this approach can be made real time, so it updates regularly. So if the number of hits increase, then the associated score can increase as well. So that's something that we can support in terms of helping people find blind spots in their data sets and make sense of different lists. So if we go to the next slide, there's two quick modules there. One is social media analytics that can be used actually to test the market prior to actually going to the market. Many people will be wondering, if you buy an asset, can we actually sell that asset? And this is one of the ways of doing that. We did an analysis here way back last year in terms of anti-obesity drug, and tried to find what kind of topics are being discussed. That's in the left column, so efficacy, product launch, and side effects. In the middle, you have a histogram in terms of how many conversations are going on in social media at the specific time point. There's three big peaks there at the left when the product was launched. A lot of folk talking about that at the moment. At some point, the stocks were almost exhausted worldwide, and eventually the patients started to complain on the price of the product. But also, interestingly, you can look at geographical distribution. So where you can see that, for instance, the United States has the majority of the conversation, 73%. Their sentiment is positive. Whereas Great Britain, where it turned out that the drug was not launched yet, had only 3% of the conversations. Those conversations had a negative sentiment. So that gives you already some kind of feel in terms of how you can add some kind of valuation into your asset calculations. Now, interestingly, just yesterday, Novo Nordisk published a press release where they described using TikTok and Instagram for Wegovy and Ozempic, which was initially launched as a diabetes drug, and based on what they heard on social media, they turned the side effects turned into a new drug for anti-obesity, and it caused a supply problem for Novo Nordisk because they didn't have enough to go around. So that's a bit the strength that you have here. We've done this for a couple of pharmaceutical companies in terms of looking at symptoms like anxiety, in terms of mucolytic drugs, and as well as medical devices companies to find out what the medical device actually does in the field, what's being said, how does it actually work. The bottom part is NLP, the combination of NLP and robotic process automation. Still, in a lot of companies, pharmaceutical companies especially, there's data silos kept in manual documents and PDFs, and these PDFs in relation to portfolio management and asset valuation could be market reports. So could we extract that data and actually put that into a machine readable format in a database to do some analysis on? And that reduces a lot of manual processing time and costs, as well as putting that onto the backbone of a robotic process automation that can then track compliancy and stuff like that. So,
so your technology has so many applications.
Yeah, and these are just examples of things that can be put together as Lego blocks or promoted separately within portfolio management, or in the last case of paper or PDF documents, if you have some kind of, I don't know, clinical data set, archive of a clinical data set that you still want added into a database for further reference, that's where natural language processing can come into place, yes.
Excellent, really good.
So, last slide I have is actually a slide that brings a little bit of things together. What I've seen for a long time is that if you're looking at the validation, certification, and approval of AI products or AI-associated products within the drug development process, there's not a lot of support there. So I've leveraged a partnership of 4 companies, Frontiere for the AI support. On the left, we have the logo of SensorWorks that does the the connectivity, so the Internet of Things. Veridad in green is the logo there that is critical in this because they can, using their blockchain, all their data is immutable and you can track any changes to the data, and the outcome of the data set of the process is also immutable. And then CyberActa takes care of the regulatory side and the cybersecurity side of things. So this is a reply to a request for commentary from the FDA using artificial intelligence and machine learning in the development of drug and biological products. That's been posted at the beginning of August, and that's something that is a separate topic here, but I did want to highlight as something that we're pursuing as well.
Brilliant.
That brings me to the end of the talk here. Thank you very much, Tony.
No, I think you're doing a really good job. Excellent. And it's going to really change the way that we look at portfolio management. So, Graham, I do want to stop the recording and then we can ask the questions. But before we do that, let me just thank Remco. It's fantastic. You're doing a brilliant job. And we really appreciate you coming in.
Fascinating.
So,